Hey, I can't hear you. We can't hear you. No one can hear you.
Oh God, I think. Let's see. Let me see. Has it been? Oh, my mic hasn't been working the whole time.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a bummer. So thank you. Is that what you sent me in the private chat? Like I can't hear you. Oh
Yeah, I
my.
think
Sorry.
it's
Okay.
all
Can you hear
good.
me now?
A couple folks are there too.
You can hear me now.
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. Good.
Perfect.
Good. Okay. Cool. So let's just go ahead and start from. Let's just go ahead and start from our conversation. So I'm gonna really quick introduce the topic and then kind of throw you in there. So I'm in a group, and in the group that I'm in, we had this meditation. In the meditation, I saw this aspect of me that was this part that got in a fight when I was 10 years old. And
Hmm.
then I didn't fight. I told you, Frank, right? So I didn't go into the fight. What I did is lack of a better word, I chickened out and I kind of like, stayed away from the fight.
You
And I
chose the
felt like I
higher
was
path.
what's that?
You chose the higher path.
Well, I don't. Yes, but that's looking at it from now,
Yeah.
because I kind of grew up in a tough neighborhood, and so at that point when I was actually choosing the higher path, I was actually not happy with that higher path. I felt like I was a coward,
Mm.
because I didn't fight, and so what happened for so much of my life, I've been trying to prove myself as not a coward. And so everybody's sending comments. I can't hear you. So thank you guys. Thanks, Sydney. So I and when I went to junior high and high school, I actually got in a lot of fights. I actually
Yeah.
learned how to be a really good fighter. And I was kind of one of those guys that my friends would call if they got in a fight, like, hey, get Martine over. And I
Yeah.
would, I'd duke it up and I was pretty good at fighting. But when we did that meditation, it was like 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you were there. Um, it was in a group, and what I saw this part of me, this inner child that actually I was mad. I saw that I was mad because
Hmm.
I didn't get in the fight. That's what I saw. And
Yep.
then what I did was I said, like, what happened? Where were you? Like, where were you to back me up? And I heard the most loving voice, Frank, and it said, I was just trying to keep you safe.
Hmm.
I'm like, whoa. So then that's what I shared with you. And so let's I guess we can start first. Introduce yourself, and then let's jump into the
Yeah.
conversation.
My name is Frank Chaim. I'm a life coach. I help dads like have more energy and time to support their families, to be protective at work, and to listen to their inner authority. And the inner authority is working with this voice inside of you that as life gets more complicated, as technology gets more complicated, and things get more, we could Google our way to victory for answers for the outside. We want to try to listen to our voice from the inside, and being able to be connected with that. And what Martin is talking about in terms of this talking point, which is the inner shadow, is a process called shadow work. It's basically, and this is what I've been coached on and what I study, and it has to do with just the shadow is parts of us that we've forgotten or we choose to ignore or choose to hide because we felt maybe we're ashamed of it, and there are parts of our past that we either it was either a traumatic event or parts of us where society think is wrong or it's been judged upon or we judge it ourselves, or more importantly the people that we loved judged for us, and they threaten to take love away from us if we express that. And for us to want to keep that love from people like our parents, we had to suppress those parts, right? But these parts are a part of ourselves that's actually really important for us to have, because they could give us our true meaning, our true purpose of what we really meant to do in life
So
if
you
we.
said it was. Well, I like what you were saying because let's break that down because it's parts of us that we're ashamed of, or there's shame around, right?
Mhm.
So it might not be that we're ashamed of it, but there's shame around, so we have to be careful with it.
Mhm.
And then we hide this part that we hide, parts that we
Mhm.
hide, and that they're wrong. And you said wrong, and what do you mean about wrong? Are you kind of
Well,
expanding that?
wrong is just like we judge it as if it's wrong,
We
right?
judge it as wrong. Okay,
There's
cool.
like a judgment upon it, right?
Okay,
Because we learned to not allow it to be expressed, or we were taught, hey, you shouldn't express this part. Like, for
Yeah.
example, the fighting in society, it's kind of wrong to fight, right?
Yeah.
We learn as young kids, don't fight, don't hurt other people.
Yeah.
But it's also part of us where when we feel like we need to speak up for ourselves, we can't, right?
Mhm.
I have a similar story when I was young, where it's like, hey, I got in a big fight and I was taught not to cause trouble. So I was like, I was when I got in a big fight, I had to make this decision. Well, listen to my dad, don't cause trouble. I'm like first year immigrant. We don't want to make waves, right? We don't want to
Mhm.
stand out. So I had to make the decision, hey, should I fight back or should I not? And I chose not to fight back. But there's this when I do that, I lose a part of myself because I felt like it was right for me to defend myself.
Yeah.
I had to make that choice to go, no, I can't because my dad said no, so I have to reserve. There's like I have to really
Respect
reserve,
what he's saying. Yeah.
respect what he's saying, right? To honor him, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I dishonored myself because
Yes.
I felt like I couldn't stand up for myself, but I had to make that decision.
But it doesn't, the interesting thing is that, and I put it down in the description, is that it happens when we're young, but it doesn't show up like as dishonor. It doesn't, it shows up like as the thing you're supposed to do or what's right and what's wrong. Dishonor to me, as I look at it, it becomes part of as you look back at how you're acting, not necessarily when
Mhm.
you're acting in the moment. And then once you get that you're dishonoring yourself, then the next times that you do that, then it actually has maybe a little bit more weight because my thought is and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that I made a decision. I did a decision. I don't want to be a coward. And I don't know what words I use, but that's probably, close to it. So I don't want to be a coward. So anytime anybody ever messed with me, I was like, all right, it's on, let's go. I didn't have a problem fighting, it was not a problem for me. Sticking up for myself, that was not a problem. Um, but then that actually got me into trouble. That actually got
Mhm.
me into trouble. So when I got married, I wasn't afraid to argue back, and then my way of doing an argument was to completely dominate, like just
Yeah,
crush.
right.
So as I was, what I learned, and I learned this pretty early on in my marriage, is that what I was doing, I was just like literally just crushing the everything, like it was over. Like I'm just going to destroy this
Right,
conversation. I'm going to destroy you. Um, and
right.
yeah, it took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah. So it's like everything could be it could swing the pendulum to one way, right? We overuse it. At one point it serves us because
Yeah.
either it helped us protect us or it was what's right for at the moment.
Yeah.
But then we got to realize, hey, does that serve us anymore? Because it may be an outdated belief or outdated um, behavior that we have, and we were just so used to using it, and it's kind of on autopilot. But the other end of it, says you're the opposite. I was too reserved, right? Where you expressed that, but now you learn afterwards you're too reserved, but you have to develop the more gentler, more softer side of that, right? The more encompassing, more listening part, more engaging, not so combative, not butting heads. Whereas me, I had to do the opposite. I'll be like, okay, there's times I'm too nice. I'm always known as be the nice guy and become a pushover at some point. Like, no, enough's enough. And this is what the shadow work is, right? Is we suppress those parts, right? I had to suppress that aggressive, combative, competitive nature of me, right? And when we suppress that part we hide or we're ashamed we think is wrong, we put any
Yeah.
kind of judgment on the problem is when we do that, it leaks out in other ways. Like the example is, we saw it in the Oscars, right? Or last year, Will Smith, right?
Yeah.
He's known
It's
as
a great
the
example.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, all nice guy and stuff like that. When Chris Rock talks smack about him, he couldn't act that something behind him. Be like, no way, and it lashed out. It's called a shadow takeover. It took over him for that brief period of time, and then he did the slap, and everyone was like, oh man. But he had it. Then he went back to his seat and had to suppress. But no, that part, like it came out, right? When we
Yeah.
when we when we hide that too much of us, which is part of us, it comes out in very negative forms, right? That's just maybe as in the men's group, it comes out lashing towards our partner. It
Yeah.
comes out in expressive ways where it's like, hey, that's not my best self today. That's not how I really am, but it's my state. It's the expression of my state currently,
Yeah.
which I'm not proud of. But those are things as you work with these parts and accept them, use them in a way where it serves us. There's great energy to do it, and for you, you were cool, and your calmness came during that time where you could naturally reacted like how you did before, but you develop
Mhm.
yourself in a way where you accept that part, be like, hey, I'm cool, and today's
I'm
a good
cool.
day. Yeah, we're not going down like this, but
Yeah.
if you really knew, it could have been a different story, right? If that guy really knew what you could do, it could have acted differently, and maybe that it it would have like proved an ego for the time, but maybe you would have felt good about it, or maybe you wouldn't have felt good about it. But you chose that path, and I think we could talk about it in a very cordial way, and kind of upon reflection, it was probably the better decision.
Yeah, and the thing is that as people, we're going to make decisions, and then we're going to go, and those decisions that we make when we're young, they're a lot of them are designed to protect us, to defend ourselves. So what we're gonna experience is we're gonna experience the opposite side of that. You can't get away from it. I mean, you could, like you
Mhm.
said, you did the nice version, and I'm thinking as you were talking, and then what happened is I was never competitive with my friends. I was competitive. I stopped being competitive with my friends, and I
Mm,
just figured that out right now. Like, I remember in high school, I wanted to be the quarterback, and I was a pretty good quarterback. And my one friend wanted to be quarterback, so I was like, okay, you can be quarterback.
yeah.
And this is like going into high school playing, JV. And as a result, what happened is they stuck me in defense, and I was defensive line, and that was cool. But then they had some other guys that were better than me, and then they stuck me on offensive line. I was like, I don't want to play here.
Yeah.
So I
I
kind
don't
of
know
went
how'd I
from
end up here.
yeah, I kind of went from the best position, and I really think I could have because I was competitive, right?
Yeah.
But because my friend was wanted it, and he's like my really good friend. Oh, go ahead, dude, go ahead, And it,
Mhm.
and I remember us talking about it, and he was a good quarterback. He was a good quarterback. I don't know that I would have started because the quarterback that was there, he was good, but the thing is that I what I saw was that I gave up. I then compensated with my
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
And that's like I never saw that until right now. I always knew that I did that, but I never knew why I did that.
Yeah. It's weird because in the streets, you were like, "I don't back down," and in
Yeah.
arguments, you don't back down. But with friendships, maybe you were able to there was some connection with him. We'd be like, "Hey, I'll give, or I'll yield to this."
Yeah.
Maybe he touched you in a way different. For men, we have different honor system, right? It's like he maybe, I don't know how deep a relationship you had with him. Maybe you had where he did something that really, like, you in back of your heart, you say, I owe you, and hey, I'll take a
He was
backseat
just a
because
nice guy. He's still a friend of mine. He's still a good friend of mine. He's still a nice guy when I tell him. Like I
uh,
told him a couple times, he's like, nah, dude, I would have beat you. And I'm like, dude, you wouldn't have beat me, dude. I would have taken that spot. And it's
yeah,
like, and it's like, well, he's like, I got it, right? Like, yeah, you did, cool. But it was I don't know exactly how to frame it. I don't know exactly how to explain it. But I think you did a really good job at doing that. But it's something I'm definitely going to look at. But the point is, I think the takeaway here would be for people listening, is that we're going to have insights into ourselves if we're willing to look at this, the shadow. If we're willing to look at like part X, our inner critic,
mhm,
the inner child. If we're willing to look at those, if we're willing, and for men, and just like you, we talk to men. So there's a lot of men out there like, dude, I'm not going to talk about that. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? But when you look at it, it's like, why did what got you tough? Like, what got you so hard? What was the thing? Well, because when I was little, my father used to beat my mother, and so whatever. There's always a story behind it. And when you can
mhm.
find that story, you can crack that egg. When you start to crack that egg, you and like you said, I don't know if you said integrate, but to me, it's like then you can start to integrate it more to your benefit, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, there is this hardness of men that, hey, we don't want to explore our feelings,
Uh
but
huh.
it's difficult, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to take time to explore it, and there's a lot of pain and work that requires. Because
Yes.
men, you should see that as a challenge, because that's the work that no one else wants to do,
Say that
right?
again. Say that again. That's really
As
cool. I want you
right?
to, yeah.
You just see as men, we're masculine energy is about challenging and breaking through and fighting and putting resistance. Say, I could conquer that. Well, conquer yourself.
Yeah.
Conquer your own emotions, right? The ones
Yeah.
that feel like I can't. It's so hard because it's so painful because
The ones
it's
that
our
betray
deepest
you.
need.
Well, it's the ones that betray you because if you think about, conflict and the feelings that we have, how many men out there that are arguing with their wives or their girlfriends or fighting with their kids or doing or even arguing with their coworkers and all that? Like, is that really what you want to do?
Yeah,
Well, it's what I do because, and it's always, there's always kind of a story behind it. Like, well, they did this, there's always kind of a blame out there.
yeah,
So when I hear that blame, it becomes a reason. Like, this is why I did it. Well, okay, if that reason wasn't there, would you have been such a jerk?
yep. I mean, it's the challenge is, you know, it's all we're always tied to our story, right? They say, hey, that's the reason it's them. They did that to us.
Yeah.
But the real challenge, the real men step up. They'll be like, no, I'm 100% responsible for my state and my emotions and what I bring to the table, right?
Yeah, and I just want to take away that what you said is like, I don't call the men that don't do that not real men.
Yeah,
Because I want to honor them because it's if you just don't know what you're doing, if you're, I mean, you can be, ignorant and just not know it,
yeah,
and 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 you're doing your best because I do believe
that's
people are doing
true.
their best. I do
That's
people are
true.
doing their best. So it's like, is what I'm doing, does that make me a real man? No, it doesn't make me a real man. It gives me personal honor. Like
Yep.
when I'm going through what I'm going through, and when I see the things that you're going through and how you're doing what you're doing, for me, that's like personal honor. And that's the place that I can stand. But it's not in comparison to another person, like that person's not a real man. And
Yeah.
I don't mean to, to damage, like to insult you, but and I don't
Yeah.
think I am. And I just want to be clear about that because there's a lot of people out there. I talk to men every day, and I'm sure you do. You coach them. Is you're just talking to them every single day, and they just have a perspective, and they believe their perspective is true,
Right.
and always every single time their perspective makes sense.
Yep. There is. I mean, it's like there's a fraction of truth to everything, right? If you
Yeah,
look at from both from multiple perspectives, and everyone's and the way I use the language I did is just a challenge. It's kind of nice on people. I
yeah,
honor
absolutely, 100%.
everyone that makes an effort that wants to better themselves. I honor that full heartedly because it's not an easy process to
No,
look from within, to question our own stories and our own beliefs and what happened to us, and to try to change that internally. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of commitment and a lot of humbleness
yeah,
about doing that. It's like, hey, it's okay. We don't have to figure it all out, but
yeah,
our goal is we want to be better.
yeah,
We want to be better than who we were yesterday,
yeah,
right? For our family, for our kids, for our legacy, for our heritage, not heritage, but our surname, but basically our family name,
sure, sure, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right? It's all for us so we could be better human than who we were yesterday, and we learn from the mistakes we encountered, and we were probably not proud of the things that we weren't proud of, and also the things that we did that we are proud of. We celebrate those too, right?
yeah,
Like a lot of us is, as we're trying to improve and trying to better ourselves, we don't give ourselves enough credit of how much we're actually doing, and we need to pat ourselves in the back a little bit more because,
yeah,
yeah, especially people that are into like these breakout hangouts. We show up for a reason, and it's like this is part of your growth, and this is part of the community you want to be with, and we should celebrate that
yeah.
because you take time out to better yourself, to understand yourself better in a deeper way. And anytime I can hang out with brothers that do that, those are the people I want to be with because we're all trying to do our best to improve, which is
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because if you look at the hierarchy of needs, you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You got survival and safety, and then love and belonging and self esteem. And then you go to self transcendence. And when you get to self transcendence and self actualization, it actually your life becomes about actually teaching other people what you learn, and not
Mhm.
like I'm not a master. It's funny. I got a call from somebody. This guy that is another guy I went to high school with, and he goes, "Who do you think you're a guru?" I'm like, not even close. I'm
Yeah.
just sharing what I'm going through, and
Yeah.
in hopes that it makes a difference for people. And I'm kind of one of those guys that's just the guy that likes to share what I'm going through, and try to be as articulate and clear and as powerful when I'm sharing it. And if it makes a difference for somebody, then God bless, man. And I get so many calls from people that are saying, "Dude, like what
I'm glad you
that guy
said
you
that.
interviewed, or what you said was awesome."
Yeah, and this is the thing that we don't get to share that. As men, we don't share those called feelings, guys.
Yeah,
Our feelings. We don't share those things, and then it puts us in a vulnerable state because we're meant to be hard. We're meant to have, but from we're like the rock and the foundation, so we have to kind of keep the composure of the house, right? But hey, having an outlet, that being vulnerable, we go experience it too. I experience it, Martin experienced it, we all do, right? And it's good to have to lead that front, right? And
yeah,
then so then other people be like, hey, I felt that too, and they could relate. And that's the sharing our similar experiences, because as the more you share, the more you find out. I got the text the other day, I'd be like, from someone I haven't even seen each other for a long time, like a coworker. He said, hey, I'm seeing your videos online, and I really appreciate them because there's that they're really authentic, and it makes me think. And I haven't heard this guy for like at least 5 years, and just
yeah,
randomly comes out because I say stuff where I really believe, and I think this is helpful to people,
yeah.
and you just get it back in different ways. So people are hearing, and the people relate. That's the point.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. Let's jump into some of the stuff that I was talking about earlier. So, when I'm thinking about this inner shadow, or thinking about the, like part X, or not part X, but like evil shadow, inner critic, you know, I believe that it's like the foundation of our mindset. Like it's like how we fundamentally react and respond because of this, and how we feel about ourselves, and why we do what we do, and why we make the choices we make. I want to
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that. What your thoughts are about
Yeah,
that?
so this inner shadow, this evil shadow, they're inside of us, right? And they're the way you want to kind of think about it is they're a real entity inside of us. It's like a relationship you talk to, as if you were trying to talk to like a relationship with a real person. You want to build that relationship, talk to them like a relationship, like you with your wife, or you would with your kids, and build trust. So you actually have to have a real
So you got to slow
conversation.
down on that one, because that
Yeah,
one's. I think what you just said, like that, just goes over people's
his
head,
head,
or
right? Because you're like, you want me to talk to myself? Look
yeah,
at that.
exactly. Or people don't listen, don't hear it. One of the things I've learned, teaching the classes that I teach, men's breakthrough and the curiosity theory, um, is that you and I could be talking, and there'd be a point where you say something and I don't hear it,
Yeah.
but I know I heard every one of your words, but I didn't hear what you said. Like, it didn't get it. And I believe what happens is that because somehow our mind shuts it off. It's like that, like that's danger, danger, Will Roberts or something, kind of
Yep.
like that's a dangerous thing. So when I hear certain things, I want to repeat
Yeah.
them. And so what you said was, if you can remember what that was, can you repeat that? That's huge.
Yeah. So you want to treat this shadow, the part that we've been hiding, and you want to build a relationship again, and treat it like it's another real entity or real person that's inside of you.
Okay. So
So what?
let's talk about that. Okay. So I'm going to use me as an example, so I can
Yeah.
be the one that sounds kind of weird if people are listening. Go, this is kind of crazy stuff. And yes, it was to me when I first started doing it, I thought it was crazy stuff. But then once I started actually using it, like my life shifted. My life
Hmm.
shifted, and a buddy of mine calls it. My buddy Willman, he's always on the show. He calls it reparenting. Like you reparent. Like it's another way to talk about it, because you grew up. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. My kids. My son's like really mad at some of the stuff, like, because my wife and I, we argued a lot. So he's like,
Hmm.
yeah, you guys argued. So that's really kind of messed me up. It's like, okay, great.
Yep.
I got that. So reparent yourself the way you want to be parented. Like, tell
Hmm.
yourself, this is how I want to feel. And I did that for myself because I had a story that my father treated me really bad. And then what I did is I started to reparent myself. Like, well, then how do I want to be, what did I want to be treated? And then I started to treat myself that way, because what I was doing is in order to keep the story about my father treating me bad, I had to keep treating myself bad.
Mm.
Like, because he was gone, and so when he's gone, and
Oh, yeah.
I need to relive that because I need to keep the story going. There's nobody to treat me bad, so I have to be the one to treat me bad.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but that's deep, right? It's
Yeah.
like he's not there anymore, but for you to keep his spirit or what he taught to you, you had to like do something that's actually damaging to you just to keep his spirit alive, which is like if you don't see that, you can't see that, then you're just kind of in that loop and that pattern and you don't
Yeah.
realize, hey, this doesn't serve me anymore.
Well,
Right? And
you're
this is
just
not the
doing that
best way
loop,
to
right?
honor him. Yeah, or it's
Yeah.
not the best way to honor him, even though your intent is to honor him.
Well, but the thing is if I'm mad at him, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm mad at him, then why would I want to honor him? You see, it's
Yeah.
very self-serving. It's like incredibly self-serving because if I'm mad at my father, if I'm mad at my wife, or I'm mad at somebody, I'm going to stay mad. In order to stay mad, I've got to be able to keep it going somehow. And I've got to find an aspect of myself that doesn't like that behavior, that's willing to make that wrong. So if I'm mad at Yvette, then I have to find an aspect of me that's going to hold that anger. I got to be, you know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
have a lot of mad experiences where I got mad at somebody or got annoyed. I got a lot of those. I call them my
Mhm.
file cabinet. So if she says something, I go to my file cabinet and pull out the file that says, "Oh yeah, I know other people that did this. You're just like those other people, right?" But I have to
Yeah.
keep the file cabinet there,
Yeah.
and then I got to attach it. So when I started to learn about this, this inner child, this inner critic, I started to look at the file cabinet and going, "Oh my god, all these files don't serve me. Like this stuff in the file cabinet, like this is no good. This doesn't work.
Yeah.
This just
Yeah.
keeps perpetuating the it just keeps perpetuating the pain."
Right. And then I think for that, it's like you did that revisit, right? When you look at the file cabinet and you're
Mhm.
realizing, okay, this doesn't serve me anymore. So what did you how did you find out that what 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 was that breaking point when you figured out, oh, this doesn't serve me and this is what I need to change for this story to change? Did you
Well,
figure that out?
what I do in my book is we talk about conflict. So what I do is identify anything that's you're not moving in the direction you want to move as conflict. So
Mm.
I have a really broad definition of conflict. Like if I'm not getting what I want out of my life, it's a conflict. And the reason I go so broad and so open, because the way that people are built is if they're not getting what they want, they're either going to suffer or they're going to go get it regardless. And then their reptilian brain's going to kick in, and they're going to go to the fight, flight, or freeze. So what I'm going to do is fight until I get what I want, or maybe just ignore you, and maybe then you're going to come around. So there's these strategies that we have. And so what happened is I was looking in the cabinet, I was looking at the things that happened, you know, and then I was like, wow, I'm compensating for this, and this is the strategy I use. So what it did is it taught me how to connect my strategies to my needs, and then my
Mm.
emotions and my stories.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think when we do shadow work and you look at the past,
Uh-huh.
you can make that connection. And I think a lot of it is when we do that, we don't wrong it. It's like,
Yeah, that's the important part. Yeah.
right? You realize I had to do this with my dad just to keep his spirit alive, and you kind of honor that part. But you go, is this a good strategy moving forward?
Well, it wasn't because of that. I'll tell you something. It was even worse than that because I don't think I hated him, but I really disliked him.
Mm.
And I started to do the work. I started to do the work, and I knew that my life wasn't going to get better as long as I had that.
Yeah.
It was self-serving, brother. No, I wasn't like, Frank, I wasn't like, I wasn't trying to be like nice to him because I really didn't care.
Mm.
He died, he 6 years of his life, he died, had cancer, and didn't have anything to do with me, with my wife, or my kids. So, and that's what he had done our whole life. He'd kind of like get mad and he wouldn't talk. So that was a strategy that I used. I learned to
Mm.
use that strategy. So, I saw that, I'm getting divorced. I still want to have a great relationship with Yvette. I want my kids to be taken care of. We're always going to be a family. So I wanted some goodness to happen. So I had to work on myself. And that was a thing I had to work on. I didn't want to work on that. I did not want to give up the story that he was an asshole. I
Mm,
wasn't interested in that,
yeah.
because I was convinced. I knew he was.
Yeah. Man, that's hard. I mean, for me, when I hear that, that actually hurts me, right? Because that story is, I mean, is the story still the same, or is do you
No, so I did, thank you. I did some work, and I remember one
mm,
afternoon I was actually going to go see a client. Actually, I was in the morning. I was going to go see a
mm.
client, and for some reason, I picked up the phone and I called my mom, and I said, Mom, I just want to let you know I'm not mad at Dad anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's exactly what she said. She's
That's
like,
empowering, right? When you hear that, like when
yeah,
you if I didn't hear that other part of the story, then it's like you wrote a new story, right?
yeah,
There's a point in my life where it's like he's not that asshole anymore.
yeah.
You saw something different, and that it releases everything.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
it was
right?
crazy.
And then
It
you
was
don't have this
physical. Yeah,
physically, I could feel
yeah,
it when you
yeah,
say it. Like, I could
yeah,
feel how it could just release all that whatever built up tension or whatever you felt from that story all the time, like, I mean, for a long time, and the file cabinet just seems like it's loose, or there's not as much files in it anymore when you say that to when you made that call to mom,
yeah.
right? It
Yeah, there was no, it was interesting because like what happened was this happened, 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 right? But it was like one or two things happened that he did, and it wasn't even a bad thing that he did. It was like it was like a dad. All he did is he woke me up at 5 o'clock when I was like 9 years old
yeah,
to help him load his truck. And I was cold, and it was cold, and I was outside, and it was dark, and I was, scared, and it was like scary. And I was in the garage, and, I was like, I was half asleep, and he just needed help. That's all. He just
yeah,
needed help. And I was like, you're such a jerk for waking,
yeah,
it was like, total narcissist kid, and from that moment on, I was like, I'm never going to help him. So if he asked me to cut the grass, I just did it like upset. If he asked me, I just was mad.
yeah,
And then everything he did from that point on, which was just like little things, like he did this, that was a little thing. He did this thing. Like one time I went to work with him, and I was screwing around. He caught me screwing around. So when it came time to pay me, because he would pay us, right? He cut my hours, and he paid me a lot less than I had calculated I made. And I was like,
yeah,
"You're such a jerk." And then you can have your, and I gave him the check back. I didn't even take the check. I
yeah,
was just so upset. But I failed to learn the lesson because I was so upset
yeah,
and
yeah,
then everything that happened. And then in sixth, seventh grade, I can name a million of these things. In seventh grade, didn't let me go to this party.
yeah,
I can remember all this stuff, and it was just like, you're a jerk, you're a jerk. But the thing is that my sight was, and what I was trying to do is create him as a jerk. He wasn't a jerk. All my friends loved him.
yeah,
My friends thought he was a great guy. My friend Chester loved him. My friend Max, all my buddies they went fishing with him.
yeah,
And but me, I'm not going to go fishing. You're a jerk. You can go with my dad, whatever. That's
yeah,
kind of how I was. And it, but I just resisted loving him. I resisted being kind to him. I just, it was, and the funny thing is that I tried really hard to be good to him, but
mm.
I didn't know what was in the way.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of weird because you actually saw all these like things as you're talking, they stack, right? In terms of
stacks. Yeah, I call them stacks. Yeah.
you see him negative, but then you also saw you actually try to you also try to be good with him, but those
Yeah.
attempts there. But that's another part. I'm projecting. I don't know your dad, but there's another part. He also has to accept that part. I don't know how well he was receiving as you were trying to send love or give love, express love towards him. That's another thing as men, right? We gotta be able to take in that too. And when people give love, like from our kids, and do that, if we're not used to receiving that, that's also a problem for us, like
Yeah.
in the present, right? We have to
Yeah.
learn to receive it and be okay. Say, wow, my kids trying to connect with me. I can't be too busy for these moments
Yeah.
because if what happens is you did it, and he's like, man, what's up? He doesn't still like me. It's easier for me to hate on him,
Yeah,
right?
and it's kind of like a setup. And I tell people, when I work with men, is like they'll talk about how they met their wife, and in the different aspects and the different parts of that relationship. And then sometimes I'll go, dude, you set her up. Like it was a setup. Like you knew it was going to fail. It was like a total setup. Like, yeah, it was. It was a setup. Like it's like, and a lot of the men I work with are like are divorced or going through a divorce or thinking about getting divorced, and they're like, "This is not what I want. I don't want to divorce my wife."
Yeah.
But the problem is that, like I said earlier, it's like, but I can't let go. I cannot let go of this
Yep.
opinion I have. I can't let
Yep.
go of this perspective.
Yep.
She tells me, I'm really good. I'm really not this. I go, yeah, well, yeah, but I can't, if I'm looking through this perspective, there's no way for me to see that or touch that.
Yeah.
So one of the ways to be able to do that and change your perspective, I think one of the most powerful ways is this inner shadow work. Is understanding that this is the foundation of your mindset. You're thinking the way you're thinking because you have history that tells you that's the best way to think. That's the best way to
Mhm.
navigate your life, and it makes sense, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And a lot of the inner shadow is you're asking what you really want, right?
Mm,
You're going in and you're asking, what do I really want? I don't really want this divorce. I want us to connect, right? And you have to have a block of time to do that practice so you're clear and you set that intention either for the day. And for us, we have we're all part of the heroic, and we have this thing called a protocol where this type of process and this work we have to do frequently because
yeah,
otherwise the other story of gripping of the pen and say, hey, this is I have to latch onto this, that becomes more powerful. So you have to have another process where it says, this is what I really want. I really want to connect. I don't want this divorce. I want it to work out. So you have to be able to build that so you have a new grip or a new story to attach to.
absolutely. Oh, and like another version of that is like, I was talking to a gentleman today I was working with, and he was like, he's been divorced for like 7-8 years, and he doesn't really talk to his daughter. He sees her like he hasn't seen her like 2 months, and he's like, I want to talk to my daughter, and it's like,
Mhm.
but it's going to require you to repair your relationship with your ex-wife.
Yep.
It's like, he's like, no, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
But then when you really got to it, when he really got to it, he's like, I really do want a good relationship with her. I really do love her, but I'm just holding on,
That's this
just
old
holding on.
story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Holding on because it's easy to when we hold on to the pain, the story, it's just our old stories and our old belief, right?
yeah,
And we both everyone's at fault if we take 100% responsibility. There's two sides of the story, and it's at today, at this moment, you could create a new story and
yeah,
and let go of the other one. And it doesn't it's not easy because there's so much attached. There's
yeah,
years of this story,
yeah.
right? And years of this validation. But the thing is, this is what I said on my latest kinda, reel, right? We could always blame people for what's wrong.
We certainly can.
We can, but if we're gonna blame them for what's wrong, we can always choose to blame them for what was right too,
Yeah.
right? And
It's you can have them both. You can, and if you can't let it go, right? If I just can't let it
yeah,
go, then maybe I can just have them both for a moment. And if I can
mhm,
have, like, if I have two, then I can look back and choose which one I want. And
yep,
there's a freedom in that. Like, okay, I'm really, really mad. I hate you, and then you go, what? But then I really kind of love you. But I hate you, love you, hate you. I hate you. Like, okay, well, which one do I want to hold on to? Well, maybe I'm just going to hold on to them both for a little while and see which one comes up.
yeah,
And then you go, okay, well, I really want to hate you. Like, good. Then, like, but if you made that decision, so I tell, like, the guys is like, listen, if you made that decision because you really don't like her, and that's fine. But if you made the decision because of your file cabinet, because and it's not you making the decision, then, but the thing that always happens, like, it happens 100% of the time, that the minute you go, okay, I'm just going to hate her. That's
yep,
cool. The freedom to love just shows up. It's like all of a sudden you're like, I guess I love her.
yeah.
It always shows up. I mean, love always shows up.
It does, and then I think your analogy is very powerful, right? Because when we are mad and upset, and we always think about that, we think there's only one option. But like you said, just the fact that there's two options, you could choose between one. You can say which one actually serves me better at this moment.
Yeah.
Let's just know that there's a second option. Most of the
Yeah.
time, we think there's only one.
Yeah.
It's always like this. It's always the negative, and I can't let go of this story. But just
Yeah.
know that there's another story part of it, and you add there, and you could choose. It gives a lot of freedom. Like you point that out, is very magical. but then you could choose which one serves me at this moment today moving forward.
Yeah, and so the last part of what I wrote was that the my experience with this, with holding on to this was it's an automatic experience. So if I don't want to let this go, it's more of an automatic thing than something I'm doing. It's
Mm,
because I'm odd,
yep,
you know what I mean? It's
yep,
like I'm holding on, like my grip is hot. So why is it automatic? Why is it automatic? Because I'm protecting myself.
yes,
Because it's easier to it's easier to be mad at somebody than, and I was talking about this the other day. It's easier to be mad at somebody than take the chance. It's easier to be mad at somebody than to take a chance that loving them could hurt you.
yep, yep,
Like, okay, I can be mad at you and I can manage that. But if what I do is I become vulnerable or I become courageous, I can still get hurt.
yeah,
So are you willing to get hurt? Are you willing to get hurt to experience that? Because if you're willing to get hurt, if you're willing to get hurt and you're willing to be courageous, then you may approach that a little differently.
yep,
And if you're the one making the choice to be courageous, then when it happens, regardless of the outcome, you can stand in your courage. You can still stand in your courage. Well, hey, I gave it my best. I gave it my best, and it just she chose something different than me.
yep,
And but you know what? I have the courage to be able to stand back up for love.
yep,
Okay, I'm gonna go
yep.
do that over there.
Yep, because you built the courage, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's worth it, right? The price is love,
The
and
price is
price is
love.
worth and that's worth the potential of being hurt again. But
Yeah.
when you get hurt, you get stronger because you experience it, and then what you reap all the benefits of it because you could do it once you get hurt, you feel what's like you could do it
Yeah.
again because you have the courage to do so,
Yes,
and
when
then
you're
so
making the choice for courage, right?
yep.
Yeah. I
And then
love that.
someone else is going to reap the benefits from all that strength you built up from all the reps you built from being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and letting them know this is how you truly feel and this is what you truly want and lay yourself out. there. But it's not easy because you are
Oh,
putting yourself to be hurt,
yeah.
right? And you're holding on to this old story because you were hurt before. And it's easier to just say, oh man, I don't want to get hurt again. But the
Yeah.
ones that do, what's that saying? Without great risk, there's no great reward. The ones that are adventurous to be courageous, to be hurt again, they get the reward, and the reward is love, right?
Mhm. Yeah, love's the reward. Yeah, the price is courage. But then you get the reward of courage too, because then you get to know yourself like, we say is like,
You're the
"That's
kid.
like me," right? "That's like
Mhm.
me." Which is
You're
another
the
thing we say, right?
Yep,
We
you're the
say,
type
"You're
of
what we."
person that steps up into the realm of like you don't know uncertainty, right? Is it gonna happen? It's not guaranteed, but you keep showing up. I mean, the odds are in your favor.
Well, that's my poo. I have my poo sticker.
Pain, uncertainty, hard work. It is, and you have to embrace it. It's
Yeah.
like you're gonna get hurt, and it hurts, and this is the hardest game to play, right? Love, because we're so vulnerable because we put ourselves out there, even as men, even though we don't show it, but we get hurt inside, because our heart breaks too. Surprise, right? You know it when you feel it, and then, but at the same time, if you keep showing up, someone's gonna really nurture that and appreciate that effort you give. And like I said, it's gonna be worth the effort at the end of the day, long term.
That's cool. That's cool. So we gotta wrap up. Yeah, I
Yeah.
I just wanna see if you can give us a summary of what we covered today from your
we
perspective,
we
like
just
what you're.
ended off. I mean, we really talked about just being courageous, I feel, at the
Yeah.
end of all this, and
Yeah, that's the truth, isn't it?
a lot of our old stories we hold on to and we latch to, and we got to realize it doesn't serve us. And the more we realize we have options to choose, we could hold on to other things other than the negative stories and the things that weigh us down and a whole bunch of crap in our file cabinets, and know that there's with that crap there's also good things in there, right? And we
Yeah,
choose to hold on to which one, and then you start holding on to the positive ones and seeing that part, you're going to be able to see a light and be able to see that choice, And then with that choice, you could courageously choose, which one do I want now, today.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. Frank, I'm so grateful that you came to hang out and tell people how they can get a hold of you, please. And then please go back and put your information in, I put your Facebook page in the description. So click on his Facebook, follow Frank. He does reels. He does like these 60-second reels, 30-second reels. And I love them all. They're really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of me right now, I just love coaching and just talking to stories and people's, we all have a lot of struggles. And I think a lot of people, they just need a real intentful ear to hear people's stories, and also strategies to help get them over the hump. And so to reach me, you could follow me on Instagram or Facebook, or go to my website, frankchainshow.com. And hit me up if you want to talk about anything with shadow, anything I said today. February is relationship month. I love talking about relationships. Well, Valentine's. So a lot of my reels is going to be related to relationships, which, like I said, it's the hardest game to play because it's so vulnerable. We're so vulnerable because we deal with heartbreak and real fears that we won't be loved if we put ourselves out there. But the price is love, like we said, and it's worth the risk. And keep at it, guys. It's at the end of the day, that's if we open our hearts, that's probably one of the most powerful things we could experience in life.
Talk to this guy. So, you guys know I coach, he coaches. I work with men, he works with men. But this is the thing, we all have different styles. So there's several billion people on this planet. So there's, everybody has different needs. I don't do shadow work. I talk about it. I study it. I read it, but I don't do that. I'll tell you something that I had. So it's 3:53. So we spoke for an hour last week. Frank and I spoke for an hour, and roughly about 50 minutes, 45 minutes this week. So I've had two conversations with Frank, and both conversations created a shift. That's what we're committed to, having powerful conversations with people that create shifts, create breakthroughs. That's what Men's Breakthrough is all about. Working with men that are looking for breakthroughs. Reach out to me, reach out to Frank. If you need help, we're here for you.
Yeah. Anytime, guys. Here
Absolutely. For you. Cool, brother. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that. Yeah. It's cool, man.
It was awesome.
We're here every Tuesday. Men's Breakthrough Hangout. Thanks for coming hanging out, Frank. Thanks for coming here.